Felix did not remember his last name. Or maybe he did, but it no longer meant anything. The world of mortals had faded from his mind like mist dissolving at dawn. Names, faces, memories of his humanity, all had long since vanished. Only blood remained, and the promise that eternity belonged only to the strong. Felix was born in a time when war was everything. Cities were fragile, civilizations fleeting, an empire could rise and fall within a single generation. And at the heart of one of those empires, he was born for war. He did not remember the exact year. He knew the Roman Republic still existed when he was a child. He knew he had grown up in a world where violence was the only constant. His father was a soldier, a hard man of few words, who believed a man only had value if he could wield a weapon. And Felix learned quickly. He trained with a sword before he learned to read. He knew the pain of blows before he knew affection. The only purpose of a man was to be strong, and if he was not, he died. At 17, he enlisted in the legions. The iron of his sword became an extension of his body. He did not fear battle, only mediocrity. If he was not strong enough, if he was not fast enough, he would be forgotten. And Felix was not made for oblivion. He stood out among the soldiers. His superiors saw more than just discipline in him. They saw brutality. He did not fight just to survive. He fought because it was the only thing that truly made him feel alive. He was sent to the campaigns in Hispania, where he learned that Rome's enemies were not so different from the Romans themselves. He learned that the world was built on betrayal, that alliances were temporary, that the only true law was the law of the strong. And so, when his years of service ended, Felix did not return home. Because he no longer had a home. The battlefield was all he knew. And then, one day, she found him. It was night when he saw the woman for the first time. He did not know if she had been waiting for him or if she had appeared by chance. But even before she spoke, he knew she was not human. Her red eyes glowed in the dim light, her skin pale as the moon. Felix had seen many things in his life, but never anything like her. "You are strong," the woman said, her voice as soft as silk. Felix did not reply. She smiled. "I offer you something greater than Rome." He did not ask what it was, because deep down, he already knew. The transformation was painful. 3 days of fire, 3 days of agony, 3 days in which his old self died and something stronger was born in his place. When he opened his eyes, the woman was there. "Welcome to immortality," she whispered. And Felix drank for the first time. At first, the thirst controlled him. He hunted without thinking, without stopping. But little by little, he understood his place in the new world. There were no eternal empires. But vampires were the closest thing to true power. He joined a small clan, hunting in the shadows, wandering without purpose, until the Volturi found him. Aro was the first to observe him. Marcus showed no interest. Caius looked at him with disdain. But Aro saw something in him. "Fascinating," he whispered, touching his hand. Because Felix had no gift. But that did not matter. What mattered was that he was a weapon, one that Aro could shape. "You are strong," Aro said with a warm smile. "And in my guard, there is only room for the strongest." Felix did not hesitate. The world of vampires was like that of humans. Only the powerful survived, and the Volturi were the closest thing to gods. The years passed. Felix became Aro's shadow, the executioner of his will. He did not question orders. He did not question the killings, because compassion had no place in a world where only the law of the Volturi mattered. But somewhere, deep in his mind, fragments of his humanity remained. Fragments of a soldier who had once fought for something more than just violence. Sometimes he wondered, would this ever end? Would he ever lose? Would someone stronger one day come and destroy him? Because in the end, that was the only truth of the world. And when Aro spoke to him about a clan in Forks, about a war that could decide the fate of the Volturi, Felix felt something strange. Not fear, not excitement, but the certainty that the world he knew was about to change. And perhaps, for the first time in centuries, he was not in control. Felix remained silent as Aro spoke. He had heard his voice countless times over the centuries, but this time it was different. The Cullens were not like the other clans they had faced. They were not rebellious newborns or disorganized vampires trying to challenge authority. They were something new, a group that had survived too long without submitting, a group with powerful allies. And now, with an abomination in their ranks. Aro didn't need to say it. Felix understood just by looking at his expression. This time, there was no room for failure. If the Cullens did not fall, the Volturi would be next. When they arrived in Forks, the tension in the air was suffocating. Felix advanced alongside Dimitri, their black cloaks billowing around them. He looked at the Cullens and their strange collection of allies. He observed them with the gaze of a soldier who had seen too many battles. They were strong, but were they strong enough? Aro smiled with his usual courtesy, extending a hand in a gesture of false diplomacy. "Let's talk, dear friends." But Felix already knew. This would not end with words, not with Aro in command, not when the only way the Volturi yielded was with blood. The battle erupted. Felix launched into combat without hesitation. His movements were brutal, each strike aimed to kill, not to incapacitate. He saw Jane fall. He saw Alec torn apart, and for the first time in his existence, he saw Aro tremble. The future of the Volturi hung by a thread. And in that moment, Felix understood something terrifying. Perhaps, after so many centuries, the gods were about to die. Perhaps they were never gods at all. When the battle ended, the guard was broken. The Volturi were no longer invincible. Aro, with his cold courtesy, retreated. Volterra still stood, but fear had settled in his heart, and Felix felt it too, because the world no longer belonged to them. The time of the Volturi was ending, and he could only wonder how long it would take for the final end to arrive.